ESPN's Adam Rubin with Armin and Levac on 104.5. The Team. And Adam, last night, Matt Harvey gets roughed up, to say the least. 5 1/3, 7 earned runs given up, 8 hits. How much does last night's performance directly impact his future outings from here on forward with the Mets?
I don't think that really has much to do with it. I think he was probably amped up yesterday. That's what Terry Collins said. Terry thought he was going to rise to the occasion. In fact, I guess a little bit of the pressure got to him and he was overthrowing. But the innings plan going forward, which we're not entirely clear what it's going to be, is going to be the innings plan regardless of his success level yesterday, because the velocity was there and he felt fine.
Okay, so you said we're not sure what the plans are going forward. What's the best feeling you have on how the Mets are going to handle the situation?
Well, I've been told he should get 2 more regular season starts. They have to have some sort of base activity going forward. They can't just shut him down and then rev him up for the playoffs. He's got to stay sharp. So I've been told the likelihood is 2 more starts. The Mets originally intended 4. I think it's pretty clear his next turn is going to be skipped, especially with the Mets widening the lead in the Rays as opposed to it narrowing. So I think you're going to see, when the Mets get home on Monday against the Marlins, Logan Brett, not Matt Harvey, because the Mets are going to use a 6-man rotation, even minus Matt Harvey.
ESPN's Adam Rubin with Armin and Levac. How do they handle the playoffs, Adam? Do they do a pitch count, an inning limit? How do they do it?
Well, there was a report in USA Today a couple of nights ago, or on the website at least, that they were going to have them capped at 1 game per round and possibly no more than 60 pitches. I've been told that's not true. That one, they haven't devised the plan yet, but that sounds way too restrictive. That if he's in the playoffs, he's going to pitch. So we'll see what happens. That's not going to fly with Met fans, but maybe it will be once per round. Maybe it'll be the game 3 starter in the first round instead of the game 1 starter, so he only gets 1 start in the first round. But the Mets in the postseason, he's not going to be that restricted, I don't think. I think the restrictions are going to come in the regular season to get him there.
Adam, the agent, Scott Boras, agent of Matt Harvey, would have us believe that the Mets were aware of a 180 inning limit at the beginning of the season. Is that accurate? Did the Mets know that?
Well, the Mets say they never were told that there was a hard cap at 180, that there were some soft numbers, and I think the Mets felt comfortable with him going as high as 195. It's kind of extreme to say they're imperiling his health if he goes over 180, which is what Scott Boras said on Friday night. So he may end up very well, though, close to 180 innings for the regular season at least, and we'll see what happens with the postseason. But after yesterday, only the 5 1/3 innings that he's at, 160? I lost track in my mind. I think it's 171 2/3 right now. So to get to even the Scott Boras cap of 180, he's got about 8 innings to go. Now, Scott Boras doesn't mean the regular season. Scott Boras means overall, but it sounds like there's going to be at least some liberalization of that number, so he could pitch in the postseason.
Adam, who's the person that gets the most blame for this thing blowing up for as big as it has?
Well, there's a lot of blame to go around. I actually don't think the Mets deserve much of the blame for this. I mean, I know Scott Boras objects to when I say that he's the one who went public with this, but this had been a behind-the-scenes thing, except for the Mets saying that there was no real tight innings restriction on Harvey until it blew up when Scott Boras said on Friday that Matt would be imperiled. And then Matt really added gasoline to the fire, because on Saturday when he talked with reporters, including me, he could have said my full intention is to pitch in the postseason or something like that. That doesn't really mean anything, because he could have a full intention and then not do it. But he basically couldn't guarantee or wouldn't guarantee that he'd pitch in the postseason. He wouldn't even say if the Mets had treated him well over the last couple of years in terms of treating the injury cautiously. So he just added gasoline to the fire. So I would say that side is infinitely more to blame.
Adam, what is Matt Harvey's deal? Is he a prima donna? Is he just a drama queen? Does he just love the limelight? What is his deal?
Well, he certainly likes attention, and yet he's not overly savvy, I would say, in terms of dealing with the media. Not very savvy at all. So it's not an ideal combination. Certainly he likes attention. You don't see Derek Jeter, who he tries to emulate or says he wants to emulate, with women draped on his arms at Ranger games during the offseason. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but if you do that kind of stuff, you're going to be a magnet for attention.
Last night, the Mets rally back down 7-1, and they win 8-7 at ESPNNewYork.com. You called it the Mets' biggest win since 2006. Wow. Why?
But I mean, it's very possible. One, they haven't been really relevant over the last 6 years. They've had 6 straight losing seasons, and then they had 2 collapses before that. So clearly they played a lot of meaningful games down the stretch in '07 and '08, but those were losses at the end of the season, including to the Marlins, those last games of the year, 2 straight years. So, I mean, it almost has to be since 2006 that the last relevant game was for the Mets. It's probably the biggest win for the team in 9 years. And I know today's big too, and the day before or 2 days ago was big. But to go down, to be down 6 runs in the 7th inning in a game where the Nationals could have pulled back within 4 in the division entering today's rubber game, then it would have been versus having a 6-game lead with Jacob deGrom going on the mound now. It's just absolutely demoralizing, I would think, for the Nationals, especially the way they lost yesterday. The Mets hadn't come back from a 6-run deficit in the 7th inning or later since 2001. So, I mean, it was not a common occurrence to do what they did.
ESPN's Adam Rubin, at Adam Rubin ESPN on Twitter. The Mets have taken this high and mighty Nationals team everyone had picked as the favorite in this division all year, and they have taken the heart out of this team. How have the Mets been able to do this? What makes the Mets so good, Adam?
Well, if the Nationals had played better in the first half and performed at the level they should have performed at, I don't think we'd ever be at this point, because I think the Mets were emboldened, and Sandy Alderson, the general manager, was emboldened to make the trades that he made because the Nationals look vulnerable. I don't know if we would have seen that Yohan Uribe, Kelly Johnson trade. I don't know if we would have seen Tyler Clippard be acquired. And then the really aggressive trade, trading one of your premier minor league pitching prospects, Michael Fulmer, to the Tigers for Yoenis Cespedes after the Gomez thing fell through. If the Nationals had been on a pace for 95 wins or whatever, like everyone expected, and the Mets were just kind of peering along like just above 500, which is where they basically were at that point, I don't know that we see that aggressiveness from Sandy Alderson. I don't know that we're where we are today. So the Mets are a completely different team now than they were in the first half, especially run production-wise, and it was the Nationals' fault, basically, for emboldening the Mets to go for it.
Wow. What are the teams in the National League that scare you in regards to the Mets, going deep in October?
Well, the Mets actually have had not very much success against the NL Central teams. They're combined 0-13 against the Pirates and the Cubs this year. Now, Met people will say privately, well, a lot of those are one-run games, and they will say fairly, too, that a lot of that occurred before they imported this offense also, and with David Wright out. So it's a different team now for the Mets. But the NL Central teams are clearly the class of the National League. The good news is that the Pirates and the Cubs certainly look like they're going to play each other. One of them is going to get knocked out right away, and then the winner's going to play the Cardinals. So it's almost a certainty because of the Cardinals' record. They're going to have the best record. They're going to play the wild card team. So the Mets, being the NL East winner, are going to line up with the Dodgers as the NL West winner. And not that the Dodgers don't scare anyone. I mean, anytime you're facing Kershaw and Greinke in the first 2 games of the series, and then I guess back to one of them for Game 5 if need be, that's certainly intimidating. But the Mets, whether it's Harvey or deGrom or Syndergaard or Matz, the Mets are throwing out some very capable people themselves. So, and then the hitting is there. So I don't think the Dodgers are overly intimidating. And Mets might even be anointed the favorite in that series.
You mentioned how important the trade deadline was for the Mets. What are the odds as of today that they can keep Yoenis Cespedes on this team?
Well, they got some good news. Well, I guess they got the good news last week, but it became public yesterday that the Mets, by rule, shouldn't have been able to negotiate with Yoenis Cespedes after the World Series. Basically, for him to become a free agent earlier than he normally should have, which was written into his contract, the Mets had to release him after the World Series. And normally when you release a player, you can't re-sign him until next May 15th. So if the Mets didn't negotiate a contract extension now or sometime during the playoffs, they would lose the right to bring him back, essentially, basically because it was in Cespedes' best interest to have the Mets continue as a bidder during the offseason. And it's in the Mets' best interest to be able to bid for him this winter because it's in both parties' best interest. Major League Baseball and the Players Association jointly gave an okay to kind of waive or relax a rule that would have prohibited the Mets from being a suitor. I mean, I suppose because they're going to be in it in terms of being able to bid for him, that the chances are improved. I saw estimates yesterday that Cespedes may get as high as 7 years, $175 million or so. I don't know that the Mets are going to go that high for a player of his who's going to be in his 30s for just about all of that contract. I'm not sure the Mets are going to go there. I mean, obviously he's dramatically changed the Mets, but the Mets also have outfielders such as Michael Conforto, who's going to be under control for 6-7 years now. Kadire under contract for another year. Granderson under contract for 2 more years. Ladaris under contract for 4 more years. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, he would be a great addition, but I'm not positive that the Mets are really going to be aggressive more than just kind of feeling it out. I mean, then again, just not to be too long-winded, but Sandy Aldrich in his book swore the Mets were willing to go as high as $175 million for Robinson Cano. So as fiscally conservative as we know the Mets are, if they were willing to go that high for Cano, maybe, just maybe, they are aggressive for Cespedes.
Your colleague who joins us every single week right here on 104.5 The Team, Buster Olney, says that the Mets fan base has been more influential than any other team in baseball this year. Not even close, because they willed the front office to go get Yoenis Cespedes and to go make these deals at the trade deadline. Can we do any willing with the Mets front office to will them to do the 7-year deal with Cespedes when it's all said and done?
Well, the interesting thing about the Mets agreeing to extend this negotiating period throughout the whole winter rather than getting it cut off right after the World Series is that it actually does increase the pressure on them to actually do something now. But they said they haven't spent very much over the last few years, but they've said for years that when the attendance comes and the revenue comes, that they'll spend and they'll match it. So we'll see if that actually comes to fruition, but it's going to be shown me basically this winter. But maybe there'll be a lot of good feelings. Maybe there'll be a parade and everyone will be good feelings, and maybe they will just lock everyone up.
Here's to a parade. I love that. Adam Rubin of ESPN New York, at Adam Rubin ESPN on Twitter. We read his articles and his insight on the Mets every single day at ESPNNewYork.com. Adam, you're very busy today, man. Thank you so much for your time.
Sure, my pleasure.